Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. So the past few weeks we've been talking about love and how that really works in our hearts and how that relates to Iman. And to sum all of that up, the past few episodes or sessions, essentially love is the essence of Islam. In fact, it's the essence of everything. Allah created the universe out of love, what He loves to do. Allah loves mercy. And so He created a creation to have mercy on them. Allah created angels and commanded them to do things that He loves. And anything that occurs in the universe, it's somehow, some way, either directly or indirectly related to Allah, to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. And within us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this emotion called love. And the way we understand love is attachment. What you love isn't what you feel that you love, but rather what your heart is attached to. And Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayh tells us that sometimes our heart is attached to things that's harmful to us. And sometimes it's attached to things that are normal, natural. Like being attached to food, it's a desire. Like being attached to normal things that a human being is part of their life. And sometimes there are things that when we become attached to, it's healthy for us, it's nourishing to us. Like someone who is attached to exercising, working out. That's healthy. That type of love strengthens the person. And of course, the ultimate goal of the Muslim is to be attached to Allah. And that we call that love. And that's the healthiest thing we can ever pursue. Now, taking all of that information, Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayh enters kind of the final main topic. And that is relating more directly back to the purpose of the book. The guy has a problem. It's harming his faith. He's in a crisis of Iman. Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayh is guessing, he's estimating that his problem is his heart is attached to something that's harmful to him. And he tied that to homosexuality. And he said perhaps what your friend is going through is, same-sex attraction. Right? And we spoke about that, and now we're kind of readdressing that issue, but from a different angle. And that is attached to what's called ishq as-suwar, the image of things. The image of something a person becomes attached to. Now we're going to go into this and understand exactly what he means. So Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi says, وَنَخْتِمُ الْجَوَابَ بِفَصْلٍ مُتَعَلِّقٍ بِعِشْقِ الصُّوَرِ. We conclude the book. Right? So we have a few more sessions, alhamdulillah, we're in the last stretch here. But we conclude the book by talking about ishq, this lust for image, that which is outwardly, and that which is kind of on the outside. And وَمَا فِيهِ مِنَ الْمَفَاسِدِ الْعَاجِلَةِ وَالْآجِلَةِ. And that this type of attachment to the image, we're going to look at the problems that it creates, both short-term and long-term. Even though we will only talk about a small portion of the problems that result, or the challenges that result as a result of being attached to the outer image. والله عز وجل إنما حكى هذا المرض عن طائفتين من الناس وهما اللوطية والنساء. فأخبر عن عشق امرأة العزيز ليوسف. So Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi then says that Allah talks about this problem in two people, or in two instances. One is the people of Lut alayhi salam. They had this lust for the outward image. Right? They want men. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَعَمْرُكَ إِنَّهُمْ لَفِي سَكْرَتِهِمْ يَعْمَهُونَ. They're so taken by their lust for this image, for the body, that they're drunk, they're intoxicated, they cannot function properly. There's something going on in their mind from how attached they are and how powerful that attachment is and the effect it has on them. And the other example is the wife of the Aziz in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. She was extremely attached to the image of Yusuf alayhi salam, that it caused her to behave in ways that are simply appalling to her status. So she is the wife of the second most powerful man and the most powerful, perhaps the most powerful kingdom at that time. Right? This is a man of power. And it's a woman. The way a woman's attachment to a man is not like a man's attachment to a woman. A man, initially in his younger years, is attached to the look of a woman, her beauty. Later on, he becomes attached to her personality, companionship. But a woman's attachment to a man, it's never just because, oh, he's so handsome and good looking. Right? Maybe that's a bonus. But generally speaking, a woman's looking for a man who has the characteristics to take care of her. That's what she's attached to. Some form of strength that she can depend on and she feels safe around. Right? So the attachment is different. So she's a woman who's attached to the physical image of a man. That's bizarre. And she's in high status. She's not supposed to be behaving like that. It's inappropriate, right? There are these customs and these expectations in the household of the king that they need to adhere to. So you look at the scandals inside the king, the UK royal family and whatnot, and they even killed Princess Diana, because she was kind of getting out of that. And so there are these customs that bind her, that she's expected to follow. Not only that, Yusuf alayhi salam was a slave. Not only that, her slave. So it's very bizarre. This is the last person she should be attached to. But Yusuf alayhi salam was an extremely handsome man. And there were probably some problems between her and her husband. He was probably very emotionally dry. Maybe he had some physiological problems where he couldn't satisfy her needs. So she looked for it somewhere else. But the idea is that she became so attached, so influenced by the image of Yusuf alayhi salam that it completely overpowered these other factors that should prevent her. And she's married. That's number 5, right? She's married. So these things, she had 5 reasons to prevent her, 5 things to prevent her from falling into this. And these are powerful things, not just any random thing. But despite that, she was so taken, so attached to the image of Yusuf alayhi salam, that she began to behave in an appalling way. So this is the idea here. When a person becomes attached to the image of something, it becomes an extreme challenge to the person's heart. It begins to rip apart their heart. It begins to introduce like spiritual poison to the person's well-being. And so Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi, not to go into all the details, he actually looks at 12 different or 13 different factors as to the story of the lady of Aziz, the wife of Aziz, and how that worked and the problems there, and how she became attached to Yusuf alayhi salam. I'm not going to get into all the details here, but the idea, I hope by now, is clear. When we're talking about ishq as-suwar, it's this lustful attachment to the image of something. Okay? So unfortunately today, a lot of these young ladies, in fact ladies in general, are very tested by this. That they run around or they walk around in extremely revealing clothing. Why? Because their perception is that men just want my physical look. And although that might work in the younger ages, the problem is, and I'm sorry to go into details here, but the problem is when a lady opens herself to these behaviors outside of marriage, short term, it's like options for her. I could choose this guy, I could choose that guy. It's options for her. But when it comes time where she wants to settle down, she wants to get married, men begin to see her as not worthy of marriage. Right? She's not the quality of marriage. She's not marriage quality. I want a lady who's going to be attached to me and who's going to preserve her beauty for me. All her life, she's running around showing her beauty to everyone. In our times today, a man doesn't have the authority to tell a woman what to wear. And if he tells her, can you please wear, less tight clothing? Oh my God, how dare you? Who do you think you are? My freedoms, my rights, and Me Too movement and all of this stuff. And so when ladies get older, they're having a lot of trouble. We're seeing this. We're seeing this today. They get older, they can't find a husband. Why? Because either the men that they keep finding are not decent people, they're not interested in marrying her, they're just interested in having a relationship with her. You're here temporarily. I'm just gonna enjoy myself. When you're no longer happy, nah, salami, no bye. Go see you. You're not marriage quality for me. I'm not looking to get married. So they keep running into these guys. And the guys who are decent, where are they going? A man who's actually serious about marriage, where is he gonna go find a spouse? In the mall? On TikTok? Absolutely not. Okay. You know, from our cultures, if a man doesn't find a lady here, he has other options. I'll go to the Middle East, I'll go to Pakistan, I'll go to India, I'll go find a lady who understands what it means to be a woman, who understands what it means to be a wife, and to be a mother. And I have my options. And now you have these ladies who fall into the Me Too movement, and I'm all for the civil rights of women and make sure they're safe, and there's a lot of problems there. I'm not denying that. But when that becomes a lifestyle, where women just want to do whatever they want, dress however they want, just be with anyone they want, pure freedom, you know what? Go for it. But understand the consequences, and you're going to bear the burden of those consequences. Now, in the Muslim community, that's not the main problem. In the Muslim community, the main problem, and we're all here just to learn, the main problem is that parents teach their daughters career. Don't worry about marriage. Don't do anything at home. I'll take care of everything. Study. And in their mind, it's just, my main goal, my number one purpose is to have a career. They get married, they're not used to doing anything at home. They don't know how to be a mother. They don't know how to be a wife. Sure, they can learn. But what you find today is that these young Muslim ladies, religious or not, it's not an issue of piety in our community. The issue is they go to men and they're say, this is a potential spouse. And what do they start talking about? Their career. I'm this, I'm that. No, mashallah, I'm happy for you. A man is not interested in your career. A man is interested in a woman. That's what he wants. A woman. He has a career. It's not interesting to him. Now, a woman might be interested or is interested in his career because that's part of his strength that she depends on to be safe. Right? She looks to him as a man to provide for her, and the career is part of that. But a man is not interested in the career of a woman, and I tell this to ladies. I tell this to young ladies. Go for your career. There's nothing wrong with that. Islam's not going to deny you that. But understand, in the context of marriage, a man is not interested in your career. He's not. And if he is, to me, I put a question mark there. Meaning, is he interested in you or in your money? This is a serious problem now. These women are working, they have high-paying salaries, and this guy's just chill. I'm just going to sit at home. My wife's spending, and she's paying for everything. That's not quality. That's not a quality man.
So the question is, what did these men's parents taught them?
Oh yeah, parents don't teach men either.
What did they teach them?
No parent. We're not seeing parents teaching their children how to be husband, wife, mother, father. We're not seeing this. It's all about career. Make money. Put everything aside. Put Islam aside for your career. Right? Why can't we be balanced? Anyway, now we're getting in a tangent here. But the idea is attachment to the outer image. Men, yes, they're attached to the image of a woman, the beauty of a woman. Now, a woman who goes around and understands this and now wants to use her beauty to attract men, right? Are we going to say normally that type of lady is high quality in terms of her character or not? So be honest with each other. Not every woman who looks nice and who does her hair, maybe puts makeup on, and she wears nice clothing. I'm not saying every single woman is intentionally trying to attract men. But let's not be naive. Right? A lot of these women wear what they wear to attract the attention of guys. And if that's the way she perceives herself, she's doing a disservice to herself. She's accepting that I'm nothing more than a physical image. Whereas in Islam, your generation, it's not even just Islam, in more conservative cultures in the East, a lot of women, a lot of men didn't even see their spouse before getting married. Now, some of the marriage worked out great, some of them didn't. I understand that. But the focus was on what? Just her image or her character as well? I'm not saying go and marry any woman who you're not attracted to, or marry a man who you're not attracted to. No, I always tell young ones, you have to be attracted to your spouse, because that helps you build a relationship. If you're not attracted to them, that's going to be problematic, very problematic, right? So there needs to be attraction. But is it just to the physical image, just to his money? You might know ladies who married a man just for his money. And what happens then? It's a disaster for her because he turns out to be a narcissist, a terrible person. Or men who only marry a woman because of her looks. And then she turns out to be a terrible person. So much for the looks, so much for the money. They're going through misery. Okay? So attachment to the outer image, there's part of it that is natural to us. But there's also another side of it that causes us to distort our priorities. A man might be attracted to the physical image of a woman at a younger age, but I'm telling you, and I'm telling them, I guess the guys, right? I'm telling the guys, if she doesn't have a fun personality, a nice personality, in the long run, it's going to be bad for you. Your activity intimately is only for 10, 20 years. After that, you're going to want companionship. So look for a lady who's going to provide you with companionship. Yes, be attracted to her. But if she's not a model, right? She's not a model, but she is a very fun person. She's a companion. That's as good as you can find. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about two instances of ishq as-suwar, being so attached to the outer image to where it causes the person to behave in ways that are simply appalling. Whether that's the people of Lut alayhi salam or the wife of Al-Aziz. Sometimes it leads to kufr. Sometimes it leads to kufr. Where a person is so attached to a celebrity, to an image, that they begin to replicate that person. They say, I disbelieve. The Muslim will say, I disbelieve. Or they'll worship this individual. Elvis shakes his hips and women faint. I mean, Allahu Akbar, how attached are you to this person that a simple shake of the hip causes such a powerful emotional reaction? It could lead to kufr, such as those who begin to worship what they love. A lot of, you see this sometimes when a celebrity comes in, a sports player comes in, the people start doing this, right? Oh, we prostrate to you, we prostrate to you. I mean, that could be, they are kuffar, but I'm saying if a Muslim were to do it, that could be kufr. If it's not clearly kufr. Oh, he's celebrity, oh, he's everything. They're so attached to that person. They see him as a god or see her as a god. Now, how do we deal with this? What's the remedy? أن يعرف أن ما ابتلي به من هذا الداء المضاد للتوحيد إنما هو من جهله وغفلة قلبه عن الله. First, to understand that the only reason why a person has become so attached to the physical image is because of their heedlessness and their ignorance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, I'm going to reframe what Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi is saying. I'm going to reword it. When I look at people, and I get, for example, complaints about a guy, about a husband, that he has a big temper, a short temper, and he's easily upset about anything. Just from that description, I can guess that person is not very social. He's not a social person. Why? Because someone who's not social doesn't have experience in life and only sees a small part of life. So small things become a big deal. Just like children. A child who a small toy or meaningless toy breaks, it's the end of the world for them. Well, why? Because they don't have life experience. They don't realize that, if my toy broke, I can always buy another one. Maybe I can repair it. It's not a big deal. It doesn't change anything in my life. Due to the lack of experience, small things are exaggerated. They become big deals. Similarly, someone who lacks socializing, they're not into socializing. They don't have experience in the world. Small things become huge, and they get upset over things that are trivial. Why? They don't have the experience. They don't see bigger things. In my experience, learning under my mentor, and the things that would come to him, And the things that I've heard, and I hear from other imams, nothing shocks me anymore. Nothing shocks me anymore. Although, if I were to mention some of the things, some of the stories that come to me, it might be shocking to you. The idea is that the more you know, you see the grander things and the grander problems. And those grander problems do what to the smaller problems? Make it small, and it's not a big deal. I can deal with it. I don't have to get upset over it. Similarly, when someone knows Allah and has engaged Allah, has knowledge of Allah, they begin to see the grandest thing. And the grander they see Allah, the smaller they see everything else. And so by default, the more a person learns about Allah, the smaller everything else becomes. Smaller in terms of status. Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah alayh, once entered upon a Mongol leader, a general. And he enters and he starts blasting this guy. He scolded this general. And there are Muslims observing this. And some of the observers said, Wallahi, we started pulling up our gowns. Why? Because we thought the general was going to cut his head off and blood was going to fly everywhere. Ibn Taymiyyah blasted this guy and he left unharmed. The general didn't do anything. And they were amazed. So they go to Ibn Taymiyyah and said, how did you do that? So Allah, I looked at that guy and I started remembering Allah. And the more I remembered Allah, the more he became like a cat to me, a small little thing to me. So small and insignificant. So I scolded him. The idea is what? The grander we see Allah, the smaller we see everything else. Right? The more powerful we see Allah, the less powerful we see everything else. The more beautiful we see Allah, the less beautiful we see everything else. The more attached we are to Allah, the less attached we become to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi is saying is that the source of the problem is that you don't have a grander thing to minimize these smaller things. And so by default, the more disconnected a person becomes to Allah, the more connected they become to other than Allah. The less they see Allah's beauty, the more they see the beauty of other things. The less attached they are to Allah, the more attached they are to other things. And so the source of the problem is that this person does not have a grander, more beautiful thing to see. And so they see an image, a person, as being greater than they actually are. Because the wife of the Aziz was a mushrik, she's a polytheist. She didn't understand the grandeur of Allah. She saw Yusuf's beauty as pretty much unhandleable. She couldn't handle it. The people of Lut alayhi salam, because of their kufr, and because of their turning their backs against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not being attached to Allah, they became attached to the image of men and that desire. Whereas Yusuf alayhi salam, why didn't he fall? Why didn't he fall into that love of her? Even though the factors that would promote that behavior in Yusuf alayhi salam far outweigh the factors that should have prevented the wife of Al-Aziz. He was, number one, a young man. A young man. He was a slave, meaning, that disadvantage makes it easier for them to behave in an inappropriate way. So you notice that societies that are oppressed, as Ibn Khaldun says, oppressed societies, their behavior, their character is poor. Well, why? Because of the situation they're in. Okay? So he's a slave. It was meant to be done in private. He could have gotten away with it. Or he could have thought he would have gotten away with it. He's a foreigner. He's in a different land. Push comes to shove, the worst case scenario, you could always leave and go back to his land, right? He could get out of that situation. And Ibn Qayyim lists the 12 reasons why, or the 12 factors that should have pushed Yusuf alayhi salam into a relationship with her. But it doesn't happen. Why? Not because, mashallah, just sees a human being who made an awesome choice. Rather, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَذَلِكَ لِنَصْرِفَ عَنْهُ السُّوءَ وَالْفَحْشَاءَ. Allah turned that away from him. And then Allah tells us why he turned it away from him. إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلَصِينَ. because he was sincere with us. In other words, Yusuf's relationship with Allah that was built on sincerity, his attachment to Allah is what caused Allah to protect him from that. That's how it works. So because he was attached to Allah, Allah was the greatest, and that attachment allowed him to get around, to make the correct decisions, to overcome that challenge, even though it was right in his face. Okay. So you see how it's working here. She failed because she wasn't attached to Allah. He succeeded by the will of Allah because he was attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when you see the desires everywhere and people doing whatever they're doing, and the dress and the minimizing of and free, the body parts, as the women would go and say, free this part, free that part, and whatnot. It's not a coincidence, and I've said this before, that as a society becomes increasingly distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether they're Muslim, Christian, or Jew, right, the more they become distant from a divine being, a supreme being, the more they fall into these types of attachments. Now, people are attached to likes. My self-worth, my success is based on how many likes I get, based on how many subscribers I get. This is serious stuff. And young ladies are falling into severe depression at unprecedented rates and at very early ages. Why? Researchers are baffled by this. They were baffled by this. What's happening? Why do you see a sudden spike all of a sudden? Well, some researchers say that the spike begins when the like icon, the like button, is introduced in Facebook. Why? Because these young ladies are posting their pictures, right, and they're attached to their image. They think their worth is based on how beautiful they are, because that's what Western society teaches. If you're beautiful, then you're successful. That's why all the actors are beautiful, and models are beautiful, are successful, and all this stuff. So they're sitting there looking at how many people like their image. Oh, I don't get many likes. That means I'm ugly. And if I'm ugly, I'm not worth anything, and therefore I'm depressed. This is a serious problem. Why? Because look at the attachment to the outward thing, the image of how many likes. There's a story where a guy was dating a non-Muslim, is dating a social media celebrity. She has millions of followers on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. And so this guy's like, you know what? I could take advantage of that. If I start a business that appeals to her base, to her following, then I have, millions of people who could see the advertisements, and she'll automatically advertise for me. I can make a business out of this. But I need some capital, I need some money to start the business. So he goes to a wealthy guy and says, can you loan me $250,000? He said, okay, well, what do you want to do? He says, this, and that. Okay. He said, look, instead of me loaning you $250,000, what do you need to start your business? He said, a website. Okay, how much does it cost to start a website? $2,000. So he said, okay, look, I'll loan you $2,000. Instead of taking $250,000 from me on a pretty big risk, do the following. Start advertising and start taking the money, and then the money that comes in, use it to buy the products and then ship it to them. Make your own capital and then start your business that way. So you know what? That sounds reasonable. So he does that. He takes the $2,000 instead of the $250,000, and he starts his business. And he launches it, and he starts advertising. And he doesn't get a single purchaser. A single person purchased it. And he's surprised. Why didn't I get any purchases? I mean, I understand if I got low purchases, but none? Well, what's going on? Research. What happened? All of her followers are fake. They're not real followers. They're not real people. There are applications, there are companies that you can purchase to make fake accounts to like and subscribe to your page. And so the whole social media fad, and this person has so many followers and whatnot, a person can have millions of followers and it's all fake. And you have no idea. And there are bots that write comments for you. And you see 1,000 comments, 10,000 comments. Not a single person is real. All of it is generated. Right? It's fake. Now imagine someone who's attached to that fake image. what's going to happen to them? Especially when they figure out that it's all fake. My entire worldview is fake. It was built on a fake reality. Or what happens when they think that this thing that they're so attached to is going to quench their needs, satisfy their needs. And then when they actually do it, it doesn't satisfy them. What then? Says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about polytheists. They call out to their polytheists, and their calling out to the polytheists is like extending your hand in a well that you'll never be able to reach the water. And you're thirsty. In other words, that relationship does not quench your thirst. It doesn't provide you with the needs. Right? And no matter how smart you are, how successful you are, our body has different needs. One of them is spiritual. One of them is masculine and one of them is feminine. You don't satisfy those needs the way Allah created our bodies and the way it is meant to be satisfied. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. And it harms the person. All of this is stemming from what? Being attached to an image other than Allah. And if Allah is not there, right, and essentially Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the ways we get nourishment and enrichment from our attachment to Allah is that Allah's presence balances out reality. When I see this world, the universe that I'm in, as one of many heavens, the smallest of the 7 heavens, when I see this life as temporary and the afterlife as eternal, all of this is coming from my belief in Allah. This balances our perception of life. It makes it real, not fake. As soon as we lose that, everything becomes distorted. So it begins by building that attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by learning about who Allah is. When Allah dominates our worldview, things become imbalanced. In space balance, not imbalanced. In space balance, things are balanced, right? And it becomes harder for the heart to become attached to any random thing. Man, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is there for me. What do I need anything else? You become less dependent on people because you're dependent on Allah. Money becomes less valuable. Why? Because Allah Razzaq, Allah has all the money. He sends me what He wants. Okay? And slowly but surely you become less and less attached to other than Allah. Whether it's desires, people, money, commodities, whatever is yourself, images, etc. The whole 9 yards. وليعلم العاقل أن العقل والشرع يوجبان تحصيل المصالح وتكميلها وإعدام المفاسد وتقليلها فإذا عرض للعاقل أمر يرى فيه مصلحة ومفسدة وجب عليه أمران. Let's hear. ومن المعلوم أنه ليس في عشق صور مصلحة. Now, Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah then says, just think about it for a second. What benefit do you have by being attached to an image? Do you think being attached to your husband's or your wife's image is going to make the marriage better? Not necessarily. What I mean by attached is this, I need this, I'm dependent on this, this means everything to me. You could be in a strong relationship with your spouse. You depend on him, he depends on you. Okay? Without that constituting attachment. Does that make sense? When we're talking about attachment, I'm talking about a level where it becomes problematic. What do you gain by being attached to the outer image of your spouse? You don't really gain anything. How many beautiful people are married or a couple and their lives are miserable? How many people have beautiful homes and beautiful cars and it means nothing? It doesn't quench their needs. How many women have super big careers and mashallah they're making a lot of money, but they go home and they're alone. And they're hitting their late 30s, getting close to 40s, where they're no longer able to reproduce. And I have a career. It's a nice career. But what's that image doing for you? It's not satisfying all your needs. Again, the issue is I'm not saying don't get a career. I'm saying don't let that be at the expense of your other needs. Right? Don't let the image of being wealthy cause you to think that that's what I need. We need money. But why do we need money? Just for a number to make us feel good? Or so that we can use it to do things? One is attachment, the other is standard rational behavior. I see my wife, I see a lady, a guy's getting married. Is she attractive to me? Yeah, she's attractive. But let's go ahead and dig a little bit deeper and see what kind of character she has. Or else if I just love at first sight, this nonsense. Love at first sight, and oh my God, she changed my world by looking at her once. And Allahu Akbar, what kind of world were you living in that it was completely changed in a second? I mean, that's not a world. You haven't built anything. It's like a child. My child can go from crying his eyes out to laughing in hysteria in a second. Why? Because the things that bother them are so small, irrelevant, it's easy for them to shift from one emotion to another. And so love at first sight, and my world changes by seeing a woman for 3 seconds, or seeing a man for 3 seconds. And what kind of world were you living in? It's a facade, it's not real. Right? So there is no spiritual benefit and there's no worldly benefit from being attached to images. And look at successful people. One of the advice of successful people is don't take things personally. Someone criticizes you. Someone makes fun of you. You're doing a project and it failed. You tried starting a business, it didn't work out. Don't take it personally. In other words, one of the ways we can understand this is don't be attached to these things. Your success, your skills don't necessarily manifest through these things. How many successful people failed 1,000 times before they succeeded? How many successful people do you hear who said that, I presented my business and I wanted to help to like a dozen people. They all said, this is going to fail, don't do it, don't go forward, whatever. And then they do it and it succeeds, right? If you take it personally, then it's not going to go well. And when we take it personally, it means that we're attached to the image, we're attached to the thing. Don't be attached to the thing. Be attached to the goal. You have a goal. I want to be successful. I want to make a good business. I want to be wealthy. I want to be a scholar. I want to have a healthy family. Be attached to the goal. But there's 1,001 ways to reach that goal. When we become attached to the thing, the image, right, we begin to take it personally. And if we're taking things personally, I have to readjust the way I'm seeing things. Don't take it personally. There is no benefit in being attached to things. If not this, then that. If I don't get married to this person, I'll get married to that person, right? And so these young ones email me, especially young ladies. I'm 18 years old, Sheikh, and I saw a guy, and I know this is the one. He's the one, and I cannot love another man besides him, right? I mean, she's 18.
What do you know about life at 18?
Nothing. The idea is she becomes so attached. And sometimes it's a he, by the way. Sometimes, I know this lady, and we've been talking to each other for like 3 weeks, and our parents found out, and they're telling us no. And my life is done. It's over. You see, I understand they're immature and they're still learning. I understand that, right? But as an example, the problem here isn't that they're interested in marriage. They're interested in affection. It's not the problem. We are created, man and woman, to need affection, to need companionship. It is part of the way we're created, right? The problem is this quick attachment, and this attachment that is so powerful that the person just loses their mind as a result of it. That's a problem. That's a problem. And so guys, when they see that a lady is really attached, right? She's calling him every day, and what are you doing? I'm not dealing with this. That's not relationship. That's not a sign that she's in love with me. That's a sign that she has some personal development to do. Right? So attachment is unhealthy, period. Understanding how you can utilize things and what's in your best interest, both religiously and worldly, that's rationale. We want this. We don't want attachment. Whether my spouse is in my life or not isn't what makes me or breaks me. Right? My career, whether I have this job or that job isn't the source of my happiness. I'm attached to greater things, that being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is no religious, spiritual benefit, and there's no worldly benefit to being attached to the images of things. Rather, it's always problematic. It creates stress, it creates anxiety, creates fear. It takes away from our rational behavior. And we begin to behave like the people of Lut alayhi salam, like the wife of Al-Aziz. We lose our mind. Right? Why? Because we're attached to things that we shouldn't be attached to. And so it creates problems. What are some of those problems? الاشتغال بحب المخلوق وذكره عن حب الرب تعالى وذكره. If a person is attached to something, they're constantly thinking about it. Period. And if they're thinking about it, then by default, they're not thinking about other things. So someone who's attached to something in the world, by default, will not be thinking about Allah. It will take away from their remembrance of Allah. That is a major problem to the believer. Right, it's a major problem to the believer. This recording is about to end. Let's see here. So that's one problem. Another problem, it causes the emotional stress, the emotional strain, the stress, the fear, the anxiety. I mean, you see this in movies. A lady had a date with someone. She's super into him. She's calling him every day. Where are you? Where are you? What are you doing? You know, let's go out. Why didn't he call? It's stressful. Allah didn't create us to be stressed this way, right? Marriage is not meant to be stressful. It's meant to bring us stability, peace. Another problem it causes is العاشق قلبه أسير في قبضة معشوقه. They become imprisoned. They become imprisoned by their attachment. And if the other person understands that you're attached to them, you become a slave to them. Become a slave. How many men see a lady, or the opposite? In Arab culture and poetry, it's normally the woman who realizes this guy is really into me. I'm going to use him. Right? So it's not just one over the other. It goes both ways. They see this person, oh man, they're desperate for this. I'm going to go ahead and enslave them. I'm going to take advantage of that. And last, let's go ahead and stop here. There's other problems, but we'll go ahead and stop here because I don't want the recording to end. صلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.